Might sound crazy, but the car company that shares its name with the Aston Martin F1 team barely owned a piece of it, just 4.6%, that's all, and now they've sold it. Gone for a jaw-dropping $145 million, 0 cents. But here's the twist. This isn't a loss, not for Lawrence Stroll at least. In fact, it might be the biggest power move he's pulled yet. Let's rewind a bit. Lawrence Stroll didn't just buy into F1. He walked into a crumbling team, Force India, back in 2018. It was in administration, dead in the water. He picked it up, slapped a fresh Racing Point badge on it, and by 2021 turned it into Aston Martin F1. And he didn't do it alone. He brought in a powerful consortium and convinced the actual car maker Aston Martin Lagonda to jump on board for brand recognition. That little 4.6% share let the company put its legendary name on the car. But financially, it was Stroll and his people who controlled everything. The decision for Aston Martin Lagonda to sell its stake in the F1 team wasn't spontaneous. They'd been bleeding money elsewhere. Their stock plummeted last year and crashed another 34% in early 2025. Tariffs on UK cars entering the US failed hypercar projects like the Valhalla and Valkyrie, and a general lack of accessibility to average buyers, it all piled up. For a luxury brand, they looked anything but stable. So when the opportunity came to offload their tiny share in F1 for a massive price tag, they jumped. And here's the kicker. That $145 million 0 cents sale valued the Aston Martin F1 team at over $3.2 billion. 0 cents. That's not a typo. 3.2 billion. The sport is printing money. And Lawrence Stroll? He's sitting on a gold mine. That valuation isn't just paper numbers either. In 2023, earlier stake sales to firms like Arctos and HPS Capital valued the team between $1.30 and $2.4 billion 0 cents. So this latest transaction isn't some outlier, it's confirmation. Aston Martin F1, under Stroll's guidance, is now one of the most valuable outfits on the grid. Now, some people might be confused. Wait, if Aston Martin, the car maker, sold its share, does that mean the team won't be called Aston Martin anymore? Nope. That's the genius of Stroll's contract. He locked in the branding rights. The team will continue racing under the Aston Martin name, no matter who holds the corporate shares. It's marketing gold. Aston Martin gets brand visibility without needing to bleed more money into F1, and Stroll keeps the prestige attached to his team. But where does this leave the drivers? That's where things get messy, because while the team is soaring in value, one thing hasn't changed. Lance Stroll still has a seat. And let's not sugarcoat it, Lance Stroll is arguably the biggest reason some fans can't take Aston Martin seriously. He's the billionaire's son, seemingly immune to performance reviews. No matter how bad the race result, no matter how far he falls behind his teammate, the seat is safe. His presence in the team isn't earned, it's inherited. This matters now more than ever because the team is laser focused on 2026. New regulations, new power units, a clean slate for everyone. Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, they're all throwing their best engineers at the future. Aston Martin? They've got the money, the staff, and the facilities. But unless they fix the driver's situation, none of that will matter. Fernando Alonso can only carry them for so long. He's in his 40s. Legendary, yes, but time waits for no one, and when your fallback plan is Lance Stroll, you've got a problem. Lance Stroll's seat is like a throne built on soft sand. It looks solid from afar, but it sinks the moment you put real weight on it. That weight right now is expectation. The team is growing, its value skyrocketing, its infrastructure top tier, but the guy behind one of the two wheels, still inconsistent, still trailing his teammate, still somehow immune to consequence. The fans know it, the paddock knows it, even some of the engineers, if you read between the lines, probably know it. But Lawrence Stroll? He's played the long game from the beginning. His son was part of the equation when he started this empire, and whether it's loyalty, ego, or stubborn belief, he's not letting go. Yet this next chapter, the 2026 regulations, might force a decision no amount of billionaire protection can shield against. The problem isn't that Lance is bad, he's just not elite. He doesn't extract that extra tenth, he doesn't pull out miraculous results in chaos, and he certainly doesn't elevate the car the way Alonso does. At best, he's average on a good day. At worst, he's dead weight. The frustrating part is that this team could be something extraordinary. They've built a brand new facility, they've poached top-tier talent from Red Bull and Mercedes, and they're investing big in simulation and aero research. On paper, they have the resources of a future champion, but paper doesn't drive the car. Fernando Alonso, despite being a two-time world champion, is also a human stopwatch running out of ticks. He's been astonishingly good, punching above the car's weight, dragging it into podiums, and keeping it relevant. But he's 43, he knows it, the team knows it, and every passing race inches him closer to retirement. So who replaces him? That's where things get political. There's Felipe Drugovich, the Brazilian reserve driver who dominated F2 and has been waiting patiently in the shadows. There's also outside talent, like Yuki Tsunoda, who's shown flashes of brilliance in weaker machinery. Either of them could step in and potentially match or even surpass Lance, but neither of them is the team owner's son. And that's the rub. Nepotism isn't new in Formula One, but this case is particularly visible. The sport has evolved past the days of pay drivers and legacy seats. Today, every tenth of a second matters. If you're building a billion-dollar team, the weakest link cannot be sitting inside the cockpit, yet that's exactly what's happening. There's also the emotional disconnect. Lance doesn't seem driven by obsession like other racers. You don't see that fiery post-race frustration or the sleepless hunger to improve. He gives off the vibe of a guy who knows he'll be on the grid next season, whether he finishes P7 or spins out in Q1. That lack of desperation, the very fuel that powers most champions, is missing. And it's not just bad optics, it's bad business. Investors are watching, sponsors are watching. Every interview where Stroll shrugs off performance or sounds indifferent chips away at the narrative Aston Martin is trying to sell, that this is a team on the rise. No amount of wind tunnel upgrades or simulator sessions will matter if one driver can't match the other. The irony? If Aston Martin nails the 2026 car and ends up fighting for wins, Lance will face pressure like never before. It's one thing to cruise in midfield with little at stake. It's another to cost a team a constructor's title because you're 20 seconds off your teammate's pace. The clock is ticking. And not just for Alonso. The real wild card in all of this isn't the drivers or even the car, it's Lawrence Stroll himself. He's the architect of this empire, the one who saw opportunity in the ashes of Force India and turned it into one of the hottest assets in Formula One. Every dollar, every hire, every brand deal has flowed through his vision. But now, that vision is facing its most delicate test, separating the businessman from the father. Lawrence isn't stupid. He reads the numbers. He hears the noise. He knows that a billion-dollar team can't be run like a family business forever, but there's ego involved. There's pride, and there's the possibility that he truly believes his son will rise with the right car. Maybe that's why so much of the team's energy is being funneled into 2026. Because if Lance is ever going to silence the critics, it has to happen when the grid resets, when everyone starts from zero. The FIA has made sure the playing field will be as level as possible. The mistakes of the 2014 turbo hybrid era, where Mercedes ran away with the advantage, won't be repeated, or so they say. But let's be honest, some teams will figure it out faster than others. And that's where the pressure explodes. If Aston Martin gets the 2026 car right, suddenly everything changes. Lance will no longer be hiding behind excuses of development or upgrades. He'll be expected to deliver, period. Alonso's already confirmed that most of the team's focus has shifted to 2026, up to 80% according to him. That includes not just engineers and designers, but even the mindset of the drivers. It's a high-risk gamble, but it shows how serious this team is about breaking into the top tier. They're not just aiming to podium anymore, they want titles. But titles require more than just machinery. They demand ruthlessness. You have to be willing to bench your weakest player, even if he shares your last name. And that's the dilemma Lawrence is walking into. If Aston Martin shows up in 2026 with a race-winning car and Lance underperforms, the criticism will turn into outright backlash. Fans won't just groan, they'll revolt. Sponsors will start asking questions, journalists will sharpen their knives. At that point, protecting Lance won't be loyalty, it'll be sabotage. There's another layer here too. With the sale of the carmaker's stake, Lawrence now has even more room to bring in fresh investors, people with money, ambition, and opinions, the kind who ask hard questions, the kind who don't care about your family tree if results don't follow. Every dollar raised adds more voices to the table, and not all of them will stay silent if things go sideways on the track. And then there's the question no one's asking out loud: what if Lance wants out? Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but eventually? Being the constant target of fan hate, the punchline of every nepotism joke, it wears on you, especially when the person holding the keys to your future is your own dad. If the 2026 car is genuinely good and Lance still can't deliver, it might be a blessing in disguise. A clean break, an exit on his own terms instead of being forced out with the cameras watching. The dream scenario? Lance surprises everyone, shows up in 2026 reborn. Faster, sharper, ruthless. Shuts the critics up. But the more realistic one? The team shines, Lance lags, and Lawrence finally faces the choice he's been avoiding. Because no matter how strong the brand or how fast the car, you can't carry dead weight at the front of the grid. Not anymore. Not in this era.